after the 2011. The central bank and the Minister of Finance had learned a thing or two from the other lessons. Have we gone back? 2021, pull it out. It was an outlier. It was another kind of election. The money didn't move. We were locked down. But now, have we gone back and are we going to see a spike in inflation? It might, but I don't think it will be that extreme. But what may happen is actually the inability to deliver services. When I see many MPs being blamed for things that are not happening, no, an MP is not supposed to collect garbage. And please don't go that route because you'll have a lot of garbage to collect. You are supposed to sit back, as Timothy is suggesting. How do we sit and legislate and make sure there is a system that delivers services so that we as oversight participants do the oversight to a system that is working? And if the system is not working, how do we analyze that system? Because if we all don't do this, we will not even be able to move the economy, because the economy is as good as the last bottom of the pyramid. The people he's describing here. If this child can't go to school, that child is supposed to be the future policeman, supposed to be the future nurse, supposed to be the future driver of Uber, supposed to be the future driver of a border, supposed to be the future driver of the economy. The human resource is the biggest asset you can ever think of. And at this point, talking about the maize, where will it come from? When we came here, my chancellor, Dr. Crispus Kionga, and we were discussing the food security issue. Being a medical doctor, he said, no, let's look into nutrition. And what are people eating? Because that will determine the kind of brains they form, which brains this economy so badly needs. So me, I'm not looking at the 15th, as everybody knows. It's an event. We will vote. In 3 days, we will know who is the president. And as Emmanuel says, many people know that trend, or at least to a certain kind of degree of certainty, they know that trend. But I'm like, after the 15th, are we going to have systems in place that address the current challenges? I don't even want this farmer to be selling the flowers, because that means something is missing in the financial market, what we call bridge financing. This farmer knows come next month the child is going into school. He's looking for fees. Now, I'm going to see farmers with coffee around them, but the coffee is already mortgaged to a certain dombo who had money. Now, I'll be imagining this farmer, oh, this village is wealthy. But it's not, because the coffee belongs already to another person. So is that sustainable? Is that not? So I'm picking a lot of information from where I come from at the Makerere University Business School Economics Forum. What are the policy issues to package for the winner of 15th? And thank God for the Ugandan system, like a reader than the American system. By 20th, we'll know who is the president, but it's not sworn in until May. So mine, with my colleagues, I'm like, what do we send to the winner between January 20th and May to inform the next 5 years? That really is what I am looking at. And I will come back later when the other politicians and those who see into the politics I also see into the politics. But when I see into the politics, I'm like, okay, what are the economic implications? Let's not lose the gains of policies. And I'm seeing a lot of lapses on that. But that's my conversation between February and May to the winner. And we'll be able to engage in that space to make sure, how do we secure the bottom of the pyramid? We are here on level what? But whatever is holding us here is the foundation, which is sitting and down there. If this economy's foundation is being eaten away, it doesn't matter what you post. Stable inflation, you lose it. Iran is having problems. Inflation is only 41%. Uganda has ever registered 200%.
Okay. Thank you, Doctor. Let me come to Moses. Moses, with the census of 2014 and the one of 2024, we have come from 34 million to about 45.9 million there. But also we look at 2021, we're at 18.1 million voters. Now we're at 21.6 million voters, 52,000 polling stations. What will be the game changers of this election, especially looking that we have a biometric, we have younger people in this, and also you can't really point and say, this is the direction it's going. What will the young people want out of this election, and what are its game changers?
Thank you very much, Timothy. The first three speakers have spoken about something very crucial, which is policy. And I want to appreciate UBC for hopefully making this a policy that in such discussions will bring young people. I think this intergenerational discussion is very good for our country moving forward. What is going to influence the young voter come 15th are a couple of things. There are not so many. One is the social contract that the NRM government has with the people of Uganda, because the young people who are going to vote next week on Thursday belong to the vast majority of Ugandans. So whatever the NRM has been able to do, or whatever political party that made promises in the previous election has been able to channel out in the past couple of years, will influence directly the voter turnout and their choices. But from where I'm seated and from where I believe, I think that the NRM is growing very strong, because in the past couple of years, basically between 2022 up to date, is that because we belong to a very porous region, that you have Sudan up there, which is marred in intra-conflict, that you have DRC Congo on the left here, where Goma is unstable. So Uganda is surrounded by so much insecurity, but the ability for the NRM, amidst all that chaos, to maintain a stable and peaceful country, for me, that is a tick that I think will inform and influence greatly the decision of the voter. Because for us who were born under President Museveni, we have lived our lives really largely in a peaceful environment. All we have had is stories. I was born in Acholi, 1996, and I grew up with this whole fear of, oh my God, Lakwena and all this. But that is now a story of the past, all right? So peace and security, you look at the NRM being able to pacify Karamoja under the UPDF operation of, I think it was Salama Kwa Wote, something like that. So peace and security is fundamental, and I think it will be a key decision-making pillar in this election. But two is the aspect of wealth creation and jobs therein. The NRM made a promise to Ugandans 5 years ago that they will, that this Kisanja is about having money in the pockets of Ugandans. So the question therefore is that promise vis-a-vis what the party has been able to go ahead and do, is there a correlation or is there a mismatch? What I see is a correlation. That you have 3.2 million Ugandans in their circles who have been able to benefit from the parish development model in the past couple of years. Last year in November, government released 530 billion Uganda shillings across the country to the PDM circles at parish level. So in a space of 3 to 4 years, the NRM has invested 3.2 trillion Uganda shillings into the local population. That to me is real transformation, that is real impact. Because what eventually influences the voter on the 15th of January is whether they feel the government in their household, all right? Whether they are able to have a feel of the belief that tomorrow can be better. I think the NRM has continuously demonstrated leadership in terms of wealth creation. You look at other programs like the Youth Livelihood Program, the Youth Capital Venture Fund, all of which have been capitalized in the past 2 to 3 financial years. You look at the Juakali program under Ministry of Gender, where young people are able to organize themselves in groups and benefit from soft loans that is, of course, revolving. You look at the regulations that the Public Procurement and Disposal of Assets has put out in 2024 that now allows youth-led enterprises at local government level to be reserved. There's now ring fencing of government procurement and disposal of assets for youth-led businesses. At national level or central government level, it's at 100 million. Local government level, it's at 10 million. All these are affirmative action initiatives meant to have young people participate in the wealth creation process of this country and eventually be part of the money economy, all right? Then lastly is we have seen a continuous investment by government in human capital development. This current financial year, our budget is 72 trillion, but a great percentage of this money is going into human capital development, where there is education, there is healthcare, there is social protection, and these are the issues that Honorable Ronald was talking about, that you want to have Ugandans spending the least amount of money on the common good, that you want to have them spend the least amount of money on education, on healthcare, and that social protection. So once government continuously takes off that burden from the Ugandan, then it leaves the population with more money to then invest and do other things. Lastly is, or I can't say it has all been rosy, all right? The past couple of years have also been marred by gross levels of corruption, all right? We have seen corruption increase. We have seen corruption being institutionalized, all right? And we have seen government or the institutions that are supposed to prosecute and to bring these corrupt individuals to book, you know, dragging their feet, all right? So for us as young people, whereas we credit the NRM for what we have seen and what we have witnessed them do, we also think that there are issues around corruption that we must speak about. We will not sit back and watch our country be mortgaged to those who believe that, you know, they can do things and get away with it, all right? Then lastly, before I conclude, is what the government principle on how best we can address the issue of unemployment. Unemployment today is the biggest biting issue amongst young people. And unemployment grows at 3.0% every year, all right? And at this rate, if it continues to grow at this rate, we will have a country with unemployed people, totally. So we want to see more government investment in the private sector. And we know, yeah.
And Moses, I want to start from where you were before I get to Yvonne here, and then Honorable Dr. Mukula there. You mentioned peace, and you mentioned policies, and the absence of guns does not mean there is peace, but you mentioned unemployment. You also mentioned limited opportunities. There is a report by the Ministry of Education, the Uganda Education Statistical Abstract Report. It shows that 8.8 million young people go to primary school, 1.2 show up in secondary school, 174,000 show up at university. We have about 6.9 million young people that are accounted for, and you have been here for 40 years. So really, what are we celebrating?
Some of those challenges are structural in nature, all right? That in between there, what happens, there are high levels of school dropouts, there are high levels of teenage pregnancies happening in between there. So most of the issues that lead towards that unaccountable number are social structure issues. So you cannot always point a finger at government, yet even at your household, you are unable to properly or socially bring up your child to make them know that, you know what, this is wrong, this is right, all right?
My last question to you, Moses, is UCE, Ronald mentioned UPE, you've had the Youth Livelihood Fund, the Bondaba Gaggawale, PDM now, next year it will go from 100 million to 300 million. What evaluation informs this? What feasibility study informs this? Because he's talking about children in Makindye West that are not going to school. Really, aren't you shooting first and aiming later?
What informs that policy direction is the cost of credit. Commercial banks today give credit at an interest rate of 20% plus. But we are saying that for us to create jobs and create a fast-growing economy, we must invest in the private sector. The private sector, what it needs to grow is soft credit. And the private sector is constituted of small, medium, and large enterprises. Most of the young people run the small and the medium enterprises. So all these programs are meant to address one thing: avail soft credit and allow them to have access to money to invest in their businesses and in their enterprises, therefore creating jobs and expanding the economy.
Thank you. Let me come to Yvonne. Yvonne, I know you have been around, you have interacted with young people, both from when you were about to run, but your interaction with young people, what is the temperature and what is your feeling with young people, especially as we get into this year of 2026 and draw into these elections? What's on ground?
Well, thank you. You've mentioned that I was about to run, but you haven't completed the statement.
About to run for the presidency of the country.
Well, young people are, for lack of a better word, I feel the temperature here has been very warm, but young people are angry. They're angry that they feel, Moses here has talked about a social contract, that young people feel they had had with their leaders and with the government that they feel is not being fulfilled. And we feel that it has reached a point in this country. I think when you're looking at the nature of where elections are going, let me use that as an example right now. You can feel where the energy of majority of young people is. It's largely leaning towards what does change look like for us in the coming election. Why are they looking for change? They are dissatisfied with the current nature of governance. They are dissatisfied with the current nature of the economic situation of this country, with the economic environment. They are dissatisfied with the social nature of this country as well. When we look at health, when we look at education, they're talking about education. They are completely dissatisfied. They're out of school. COVID came, and majority of them dropped out of school. They couldn't afford to even do the little jobs they used to do before to be able to make money, to continue in school. Most of them are taking care of themselves. Even their parents who are taking care of them cannot afford to keep them in school. So we are looking at one public service that is supposed to be largely funded by by government. Let me not sugarcoat. By government is no longer being funded by government. Reason why? Majority of the funds that are meant to go into good public service are either being corrupted or they are being spent in these elections. I don't know what's happening with these ceilings for electoral financing that are extremely high, and yet when it's time for public service, we are not seeing the money. It's a mess. So young people are not happy because the state of what is happening in this country is not a good show. Moses has sugarcoated what he was supposed to say. The reason why so many are out of school and education is not doing as well it's supposed to be doing is because funding is not there. Funding is not there. A government that is meant to be taking care of young people going to school is not doing its duty. It's not doing its duty. People don't have money. School fees is going up. The cost of living in Uganda is high. How are Ugandans going to afford to take their kids to school? There's no UPE school in one of the constituencies. A government that has promised us that there's every single constituency has a UPE school. We have a member here. We have a representative who is telling us is none. So we are sugarcoating. Public service has failed, not by accident, by the way. It's intentional. Money and funds that are meant to be going into public service is being swindled somewhere else. It's being swindled by somewhere else. It's going into elections, extremely expensive, unnecessary. Where we've reached, we are having a clown show of elections. People are spending billions to rig voters to... It's a mess. So young people are angry that the nature of the country they are seeing does not show a promise of what they think the future is going to look like for them. So the situation, from what I've observed myself, is not something that we should take home about. It's not something that young people can say they are protecting gains over, and it's the reason why you see majority of them leaning towards opposition. They are not happy with the government. I'm not here to defend the government, so I can't sugarcoat for them. Young people are not happy. They are not happy. Full stop. Let me speak for myself in terms of what we feel the irregularities are, even with representation. When now it comes to getting into the power structures of what we feel we need to try and change, there's a very big problem. So on ground, we are facing one sort of problem, but when we try to push by entering power structures to try and do the change ourselves, there's a very huge incumbence. There's a very huge limitation. There are people that are not allowing it to happen. Why? Why? We are complaining that we feel the future should be taken into our own hands as young people, but there are people not allowing it to happen because there are people trying to entrench themselves into power, refusing. Please do not put me in you're largely, majority of your NRM, you are serving in yellow. In short, government has not fulfilled what it's meant to fulfill, but also we feel that it's become extremely impossible for us to infiltrate these spaces to try and understand how we can take control of this country for ourselves and start planning for the future of where these people have failed, of where the government has failed. When I say these people, I'm pointing to, as you said, because I'm seeing yellow, but I mean the current incumbent president and the party that is taking control of this country and the leaders in general.
Will the young people be the game changers of this election, and will their message be heard, regardless of what the result is?
You're trying to trick me or put me in a corner to answer that question.
No.
In a way.
At the end of the day, you've spoken, Moses spoke about unemployment. You're speaking about a social contract that is failing, public service that is not there. will their voices be heard regardless of whatever the results is?
If young people's voices were being heard, or they were the actual game changers of what happens during most of these processes, I don't think we'd be where we are right now. Because from the previous election alone, we'd be having a different president. Okay.
Let me come to Honorable Dr. Mukula, who is online. Honorable, you are in charge of really seeing how the region goes. Come next year, 2027, Kenya will be going to elections, and that means this year for them is an electoral year. DRC is at the fringe of war. Sudan to our north is at war. South Sudan is also some bit of unrest in there. When you look at one of our biggest importers being Kenya, what does that mean for us as a region, especially that we'll have elections and then in turn they will have elections, being that they have had a few incidents with their elections? What do you make of it?
I think let's first look at it from the national aspect. Uganda is a very stable country now. I would actually equate it to an island of peace. And you will see that the level of stability in the country, both political, economic, and social, is one that has been founded on various aspects. One, the security in the country, and that's what I want to assure the country. Security is quite stable. Uganda is now peaceful from the north to the south, east to the west, and it would not have been possible for you to have elections in a country like Uganda now if there was a level of instability, and you'd have really seen the consequences. In the past, you'd also note that there are times when presidential candidates could not visit areas like, or go to campaign in areas like Karamoja, in parts of the northern Uganda, and so on and so forth. But now you have peace and stability in the country. Two, when you look at the regional aspect, the Eastern Congo, and by the way, I want you to note that DRC Congo is 11 times the size of Uganda, 91 times the size of Rwanda approximately, but for a majority from the year 1961, when DRC Congo at that time got independence, many parts of Congo have not enjoyed peace. So what you are seeing now is nothing new. This has been the phenomena that was left by the colonial masters. And DRC Congo is potentially one of the richest countries in the world. Now, you also asked a question about elections in Kenya. Kenya has enjoyed reasonable peace and stability. They have hardly had any instability. And you'll note that overall, the Kenyan economy is stable. I want to hasten to add that the propensity for democracy in the African continent is growing day by day. But I would want you to note that the history that we have had in terms of pluralism and democratic institutions in the country, Uganda, have been one that we have had since 1962 when we had independence. We had first direct elections in 1996 after the 1995 constitution. What does that mean, a president directly elected? It means that most of the leaders from the chairpersons, the members of parliament, and all the other strata of leadership in the country, the pyramid structure, are regularly elected. This had not been the phenomena either pre-colonial or post-colonial until the national resistance movement came in. At the macro level, and this is the aspect that you need to look at, and maybe Professor there, the professor of economics, will tell you that at the macro level, Uganda has got a very stable economy. Inflation is under check. It's at about between 3 to 4% average. The growth in terms of GDP average has been for the last many years at 6%. It is at the micro level that the panelists were talking about and discussing earlier on, that we now are talking about bringing people into the money economy. And that is the emphasis, that's the social contract that is being laid on and being emphasized by the National Resistance Movement and President Museveni for that matter. And that's why you're looking at PDM, which is soft money or soft credit. And that soft credit goes to the broader strata. And it has been the center of gravity of the NRM manifesto. I think you'll get to understand that whereas the country is stable, whereas the country is secure, we are now exporting peace to the region. The critical component now is how do we deal with emerging problems that NRM is starting to see. One, poverty, and that's why you're talking about addressing it with soft credit. Youth unemployment. And you know that when you look at the demographics, and the panelists would like to know, and those who are listening, that Uganda has got one of the youngest, is the youngest nation in the world. You have averagely between 0 to 4 years, 8 million children. Between 0 to 16 years, 55% of the population. Between 0 to 30 years, averagely 80% of the population is below the age of 30 years. What does that tell you? These demographics and the numbers tell you that there is a growing trend now for many of our young people who are emerging and getting into the employable stage, who now need to manifest and get into to employment. And I think the critical point that you want to look at, and that's what you need to answer in this election and future elections, how do we address and how do we stabilize this growing phenomena of youth unemployment, and how do we stabilize that direction? Okay. One of the key things I want the people to get to understand is that we are lucky that in a year or so, Uganda will now start to earn from the export of oil over $2.2 approximately $billion from oil exports. And when you equate this and add it to the exports that are growing from the minerals, in the last posting, I think it was 4.4 billion. And that was being mainly from dollars and from export of minerals, mainly gold. You have also seen that we are growing in terms of export of coffee. We are now among the top exporters of coffee at the global market, mainly from the African continent. We have also got a surplus of most of our agricultural products. Don't forget, 48% of East Africa's arable land is in Uganda. So we are enjoying the comparative advantage in agriculture. The foundation of all this is that I see a bright future.
Honorable,
I see a country that is
allow
growing.
us to read some messages, then be able to come back to you there. Let me read three messages so that we can take a break and then come back to this discussion. First message comes in and the gentleman says, Dear Timothy, thank you for the show. I traveled from Entebbe on Monday to Kampala. The number of vehicles and cars heading to Entebbe was countless. Honestly, if the number is what is carrying the people from one district to another, what should we make of this? Okay, interesting there. Good evening, Timothy. Thank you. My name is Obo Zephaniah from Tororo. This election can never and will never be free or fair because some of the candidates, mostly NRM, are already telling the voters that they have already won the election. Therefore, I do not even see the reason why I should go and vote out there, okay? In 2025, Uganda's real GDP expanded to 6.3%. That was financial year 2024-2025, driven by agriculture, industry, and services. Inflation remained low at 3.5%, boosting confidence and both household and businesses. One of the most significant expectations for 2026 is the imminent start of oil at Lake Albert, which analysis project could boost the growth of the economy to more than a single digit if fully utilized or realized in the subsequent years. However, the election dynamic could affect stability and investors. This is Opolot Akulo Ignatius from Chitende in Entebbe. Okay, finally, Good evening, Timothy. Moses is explaining things so well. I think I appreciate what he's saying there. He's balanced in his communication and what he's saying. We also appreciate what we have, where we have it, while looking for better. This is Dr. Tusime. Thank you, Doctor. I'll keep the messages for when we come back. Let's take a quick break. When we come back, we'll get into the nuts and bolts of the National Voters Register, biometric, and the internet after this break.
Blue Christmas is near. Spread the festive cheer all December with great deals right here. Shop online with Market by Momo. We deliver. Log on to market.momo.africa. Use the MyMTN app or the new Momo app to register and shop online. Market by Momo is from MTN and powered by MasterCard.
The government's core mandate is to maintain law and order, safeguard citizens' rights, and provide essential public services.
Remember, one of the pillars of a roadmap is innovation and entrepreneurship.
There has been this question of how are you protecting our indigenous seed?
It's going to be a tall project. That answers somebody's question.
The Front Bench has brought you insightful discussions on governance, security, healthcare, justice, and commerce.
When you go through this complicated procedure, involve the lawyers, you bring the case against him, the judge will hear you out and pass judgment, and you're out of court in record time.
We remain committed to keeping you informed and engaged on key national matters.
So these are huge, these are powerful organizations which now Uganda chairs. Why don't you come together?
If we haven't migrated to the e-card because of various reasons, including that not all the people of Uganda have smartphones.
You can sit in your house, apply for a passport.
If you have a Ugandan who has a successful logistics firm in the US, it means he can come to Uganda and do a lot more.
Every Monday at 8:30 p.m. with me, Jethro Kasaiji, your interface with the government only on your public broadcaster, UBC, Inspiring Uganda.
Welcome back from that quick commercial break here on Behind the Headlines. My name is Timothy Nyango. So I'm joined by Yvonne, I'm joined by Moses, I'm also joined by Dr. Mhumza, Ronald, and finally Honorable Dombo. I also have the Honorable Mukula online there. But let's get into the discussion that is really the nuts and bolts of what we're supposed to be discussing. Honorable Dombo, the Electoral Commission hasn't given the National Voters Register as it should 2 weeks before elections because it has made some updates. Do you have a concern about that as the NRM? Is it a concern for you?
Definitely it is a concern, but I want to correct the impression. We received the registers today. And
the updated one?
Yes, they have come in about a week late. And the intention of giving these registers earlier was to enable the stakeholders to be able to look at them and compare with what is on the ground, so that if there are any issues, you could be able to raise them within the available time. Right now, by the time we finish looking through the registers, it may be the eve of the elections. And I wonder whether the remaining time will enable us to address any issues that we shall get within the registers. But Timothy, I want to tell you that the election process is a culmination of a number of factors. The processes that affect the elections is the due process, what exactly the Electoral Commission has been doing. The second one is when do you get the money to do the work that you are supposed to do. The third is the number of stakeholders involved, whether there is goodwill on everybody who is participating to ensure that all of you are moving in the same direction. Then the other is the anticipated technology. Because whereas now we're talking about biometrics, when did it become an issue, and whether those ones who are going to use it are familiar with it and will deliver on what it is intended to do. All these are challenges, but I want to tell you, the Electoral Commission has tried its part. But it is a collective issue that all of us, the stakeholders, have we done our part, and have we put the ideas together for purposes of improving the process, other than blaming the NRM because it is in the government and they appointed the Electoral Commission.
No. We're not saying the NRM because it's in government. We're asking if this can be, if it's a concern for you as a party, first of all, because you're participants in the elections.
It is.
And you have mentioned it and said, you know what, by the time we scrutinize it, we will be at the election day. The question around that is, won't that delay whoever gets the social contract to be able to continue with their mandate, especially because these look like grounds for petition, grounds for, you know, someone taking whoever gets the social contract to court, the biometric sensitization, and these grounds especially to cause hiccups in this electoral process as the ruling government?
Some of the technological factors are grounds to deliver on the quality of the elections. Whether they would be big enough to affect the outcome, that we shall leave it to the participants to assess at the time of the elections. But for us, every election that happens in Uganda ordinarily should be better than the previous one. Why? Because if it has gone to court, court should help us to improve the jurisprudence, because it must have given some directives on how best it should be improved. Secondly, if it is the introduction of technology, technology must be intended to solve a problem that was witnessed, and technology should make things easier. But it's possible to bring technology, and technology make things more harder.
So
when, if
in your view, Honorable Dombo, what is the biometric solving?
You know, one of the accusations, and there has been a vehement complaint by His Excellency the President, and our foot soldiers who are on the ground, that we were cheated in a number of places. But also there have also been accusations of multiple voting in Uganda. And there is no way you can solve the issue of multiple voting using ordinary eyes. Because somebody can vote here and go and vote in another polling station. But when you have the biometrics and the technology is good, it should be able to determine that this person has voted or this person hasn't. The other accusation has been pre-ticked ballots. It hasn't been an easy thing to verify. Even when people go to courts and make allegations, when somebody has ticked, there is no technology that will show that this tick was done by Dombo or this tick was done by Dr. Muhumuza. We believe the biometrics should be able to do that now that we are going to use thumbprint to identify who the voters are. Secondly, if you are in a tally sheet in a tally center and somebody comes and says at the polling center, we had 400 voters. But now at the declaration, we see somebody has got 600 voters. At that time, the person doing the verification does not have any immediate technology to go do a reference on what happened. But now I hear in the tally center, the biometrics will be, the machines will be there. It is just an issue of going on technology and says this polling center, what exactly happened, how many people voted, and what was the outcome. If technology is able to deliver on these promises, then this process should be better. But only it depends on whether the people who are going to use it are also well trained and they understand what exactly they are going to do.
My last question to you before I come to Ronald there. Yesterday or the day before, a journalist was caught by security agencies for doing his job and his head slammed against a car. As government, who has the social mandate right now till May, why are you not coming out to condemn such acts and put order to this?
You know, there are some things that are happening, and you'd imagine that because NRM is the candidate, we have candidates both at presidential and parliamentary level, some people, it's as if there is no government. That when you look here at the narrative within the population, some of this narrative is deliberate, but also some of it is misleading or based on ignorance. Yesterday I was on one of the programs, and one of the participants said that when our president is elected on the 19th, on the 15th, on the 19th we shall free Dr. Besigye. And another one said, when I'm elected president, the following day there will be a by-election in the other constituency.
Kawempe North?
No, where there is this singer. Busiro something.
Busiro East.
Busiro East. There will be a by-election. The reasons for by-election are prescribed in the constitution and the law. Two, when you get elected, even if somebody was elected on the 15th, Dr. Mhumza has told you about the transition. That there is the swearing in will be in May. Because between now and May, there is an effective government because the term has not expired. And there are processes that must be done. So when you see the participants, you acknowledge that there is a lot of ignorance, the people who are aspiring to become leaders. There is also deliberate narrative in order to either hoodwink or mislead the voters. But also, when you listen attentively, you can see, when you read the story in the Bible about the widows, the women who produced children, and one of the children died, and they went to King Solomon. Whereas the mother of the child was empathetic and said, let us not kill, when King Solomon proposed splitting the child and them sharing, the one who was in the mother said, yeah, this is the best, let us kill and share. Now, when you hear people talking about the outcome and the process of these elections, there are those who care and love that the outcome should be this and the processes should be done well. There are those who are saying that whether the outcome or not, for us who are getting on the streets, and we must do bad things that should come. So the narrative, the condemnation, the many things that are happening, it depends on the ideological orientation of the individual, what exactly they are working for, and what could be behind their narrative and who is pushing them. But the good thing which is happening, which the trend I'm seeing now, when you hear a discussion like we are discussing now, people are talking about issues that affect Ugandans. Even when we may be here and we are different political parties, nobody has talked to insult the other because there are issues there that affect Ugandans. He has raised the issues which he has said in his constituency. And these are real issues because leadership, Uganda does not lack leaders. Uganda lacks knowledgeable people to do what is right. But on the basis of leaders, every area has elected leaders. And when we begin talking about issues, this is why I ask my brother, Dr. Mhumza, after these elections, like you have promised, let us return the forums of people begin discussing the issues that affect them. There are people who are knowledgeable. When you silently sit with the people, yesterday I sat with some gentleman called the Luzi.
Abraham Luzi.
Luzi was on a program, and he had some of the weird ideas. But at times it's the weird ideas that transform society. You know, you see what our brother in the developed economy, what he did one thing the other day, and you can't be sure what is happening in the various capitals. If those enemy has a problem with him, somebody could be in a basement now wondering whether they would be next candidates.
Okay. Yes, and also there's a whole Greenland thing there. Ronald, let me come to you.
Who knows, Ulisa may be on his radar where our oil is.
Do you know how many polling stations you have in your constituency and how many voters are there?
Yes, I know.
Up to date, as
but
what
I'm relying
received yesterday.
No, I'm relying on data that I received 3 months ago. But
3 months ago, we had 38 polling stations.
Yeah,
38,000.
Yeah,
Actually, 42,000. Today we have 52.
My area, I know it like the back of my palm. So even if they change, they've added, I can even tell you that now in my area, they've added in 18 polling stations. From what came out, I have not received officially, but I saw something which was different from what I have. But because it was not official, I'm still relying on the official one.
Yeah, we can catch
You get me? But this is where I want to, thank you for asking that question.
Let me add something to that. How conversant or confident are you in the biometric system?
Okay, now let me take them together, but
Yes.
let me begin with the first one. I want to really thank you for raising that question. And I also want to bring to the attention that Ugandans, we need to start calling out the players in our country who don't do their job right and bring us so many problems. We have an electoral commission that sits for 5 years doing nothing. And then they start fidgeting in the last year. Of course, they will say budget, 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 but me, I don't want to take that. We have an electoral commission in every district. What stops them from the day they finish the last election to start updating the register? You can update that register every year. So that by the time we reach elections, you are not updating anything. The register is already up to date.
With which money?
This is what I'm saying. That we call out. We throw the cards on the table. Because I cannot believe that a country in the 21st century is updating a register. A register should always be updated. But we are here, updated. Now, do you know that in my parish, people have to take a border of 3,000 to go and pick their voter slip? That's one way. Then if they have to go back home, another 3,000. This is total disrespect of the Ugandans' right to vote. This is enfranchisement of the voter. How do you make picking a voter slip that cumbersome? And oh my God, you should go and see the queue. You should go and see the queue. And when did they bring them? We are beginning elections on 15th. Do you know when they brought those voter slips in my parish? And then people have to move through. My parish has 20 villages. About 5 kilometers. 5 kilometers long and I think about 3 wide. So you tell me all those people are supposed to come to one place and pick voter slips in a space of 3 weeks? Somebody is lying to the Ugandans. Somebody is sleeping on the job. We have LC1 chairpersons. What's their job?
You sound like you're saying there's an ideal structure on how things should be done. What is that
The
structure?
systems are there. We just don't do the things. We just don't put the right people in the right places. We are suffering because of incompetence and disrespect of systems. We have an LC1 system. Put the voter slips with the LC1. Everybody should be able to get this voter slip on foot. But you can't put a whole parish voter slips in one place. I've told you I have 20 zones, 74 polling stations. And you put all those voters only in 12 parishes. Because my constituency has 454 polling stations. 12. Now all those are expected to pick their voter slips from 12 points. You tell me, who does that? And these are people who knew we had elections 5 years ago.
So let's come to the biometric. How conversant and confident are you?
If people can't update a register, how do you expect them to run biometrics? These problems, some of these things, I don't even want to bother with them. You know what is coming. Me and you know what is coming. Today I was with people who came from training. How do you tell me you're going to train somebody how to use a biometric machine, how to validate and scan a voter card in 3 hours? How? Who's lying to who? These are problems. But again, I don't want to say it is NRM's problem. I don't want to say it is minister's problem. I want to say it is the Electoral Commission's problem. That's their tough. They should take responsibility, budget, plan, and do. You can't introduce a system at the 11th hour and you expect it to work.
What does this spell for the results of the elections?
Just expect, we are going to do a traditional way. You come check your name in the register, give you a vote, and you can vote.
Okay.
Forget this. First of all, let me tell you.
Ronald, let me clarify that. The president stood and said, if a biometric fails in a constituency, that election will not happen in that constituency.
Well, that's his call. But me, I'm telling you the fact on the ground. Have you tried to get a SIM card of recent?
Yes.
How many times do you have to rub your thumb on that fingerprint reader? Sometimes it takes you about 10 to 15 minutes. Now, you have a polling station with 600 voters. Divide 8 hours by 15 minutes. Tell me how many people are going to get validated.
Okay.
So just even by just seeing the dynamics of the reality of the exercise. Because it's not a tap and go, tap and go. That thumbprint has to be read by that machine. It takes some minutes. I have an average of 300 voters per polling station. Tell me how you're going to take all those 300 thumbprints. People are coming in at their own time. Remember, what is our I'm not trying to be skeptic or be a prophet of doom, but we really have to be honest here. Do we have the internet capacity for all those systems to be on at that same time? And we don't have some slowness, some lagging, some
disruptions.
These are technical issues. Have we considered them? Are we going to do test runs?
They were done in parliament.
My friend, we have 7,200 villages in this nation. The polling stations, the latest update was
52,000 polling stations.
They are all going to be running at the same time. Do you have power for all those machines at the same time? Let's be real. These are things you introduce 2 years, 3 years to elections. You test them, you improve them, you train people. By the time we reach here, it is touch and go.
Okay. Let me bring in Dr. Muhumuza. Doctor, when you hear the politics,
this is not politics. This is technical.
When you hear the politics and the technology that is Ronald and Honorable Domba talking about, you and I have been here. We have talked about the budget, whichever call circular has been there. We've also talked about development. We've talked about debt. When you look at this, and a country that wants to take off with the oil, SGR, are really these things feasible? The money in circulation, how much has been spent, and how much is being put back in this economy. Do you have economic concerns?
Of course I do, and very many of them. And that's why I've said, for me, beyond the 15th, my work will begin. Value for money is what is discussing here. But also from hindsight, we always say the fallback position. I spent some time learning computer science at a diploma level, postgraduate. And really you always want to say, if anything can go wrong, it will. So what is my fallback position? I am bringing biometrics. It's a good technology of the day. Are we there for it? And it goes back to who has been engaged in this. One of the things that took me to learn this postgraduate diploma in computer science was something called systems analysis and design. To analyze a system and design what you want to solve. What kind of equipment, personnel, and other things do you need to address the entire system? But also to have a fallback position to say, what if? And economics is about these kinds of scenarios. What if the river floods and we cannot cross to the other side? And we have been there, because there are some of these people who have no margin of error. UNEB is always one of my best examples. Remember, children in all the countries, we said the 8 million, whether about 1.4 million are going to sit exams. Mathematics begins at 9. a.m. The whole country must start at 9. If there is any delay, that delay must not go beyond the 30 minutes because the exam will go on social media to those who do not. But UNEB knows this exam is on the 17th of November, 9 a.m. So they begin to work backwards to deliver to Nakivubo Blue Primary School as well as Imvara College, all of them 17th. So you have really the knowledge to deliver some of these things and the time. And UNEB hasn't failed us. They have here and there, but they work out. And these are the people training, the people supposed to run these systems. We always know there is a 5-year election cycle. And if we really want to bring in technology, you don't bring it at the 11th hour, as he's saying. You want to come in early and do all the prototypes and trials early enough. Because you have no margin of error. This election must happen on the 15th. And it has a span of 8 hours for the millions to vote. Now, there will be many people who may not even turn up. As I was coming with Honorable Domboy, we discussed and said the NRM has 2 things to deliver. One is victory to itself, but also the turn-up is also this whole thing. So if NRM wins or whoever wins with a turn-up of 18%, I will go and call him and say, you guys, 82% of the people didn't vote. What happened? You yourself feel uncomfortable as a winner, whoever wins. Because you say 82% of the people didn't come in. What exactly happened? So if you see some of these things, and I'm hoping that the Electoral Commission is really running things, to say what is the fallback position that when people come in. I usually go to a certain bank, and when the queues are increasing, and sometimes I still go to the banks, I don't use ATMs. I want to see the reality of things. When the queues are increasing, the manager is over there to come and put more men and women on the ground. So what is our position when it comes to 2 p.m. and the lines and queues are still that long? Do you declare another day for elections? We need to check the law whether the Constitution allows us to go into the 16th. And how do you protect the ballots in the night? I mean, these are things we need to be working out to make sure we have minimum errors, to raise anxiety, to raise the credibility issues, and so many of the other things, but also to satisfy Ugandans that we set up an election and it functions. That for me is value for money. I'm glad that my colleagues from the Ministry of Finance provided the resources at the time when it was requested, and they are continuing to provide those resources at the risk of causing inflation, but also that we are watching it, that the releases are looking into the amount of money supply in the system to make sure you are not funding everything, holding some that need to wait. So that phasing is going on very well, because ultimately beyond the 15th, we need to answer the question. And for me, it's not just about the youth unemployment. I'm even more concerned about the elderly who are unemployed, because right now they are the ones looking after the unemployed youth. Emmanuel Dombo here needs to tell you how many people he's looking after. So if he lost his job, I will have a problem with possibly 50 youth joining the other youth who are angry. So I'm interested in both parties, and I'm trying to say, what are the macro? Honorable Mukula talked about those macroeconomic parameters. If I borrow money as government at 17%, am I not distorting the money market that the youth who don't get PDM will not get money from a bank because the interest rates have gone up? But even the youth who get the PDM 1 million, they need to buy inputs from another person who is not a PDM. If that person is borrowing expensively, he will sell to them expensively. So I want to look at all the 11 players on the pitch and say all of them must do their part. These days we no longer score only the guy who scores the goal. The assist is critical. So who is the assist in the PDM game? He's not in the PDM bracket, but he's very critical in this whole game. And if government is going to borrow for a 2, 3 year, 4 year bond, 5 year bond at 17%, that distorts the entire money market. And then that translates into the current information that we have, that 30% of URA revenue collections are going into interest payment. So they are not going to collect your garbage. Doesn't matter whether you sit in that council. And if there is the proposal I've seen in the public service, want to increase civil service pay, your councillors and technocrats will be paid. But the real truck that collects the garbage will have no money for fuel, and for tires, the piles will continue. So you have a lot of tasks. And that's why I'm saying between the 19th and May, I even want to be part of the teams that engage the members of parliament, the successful members of parliament, on how do we chart the journey from May to 2031 and make sure there is a difference that time. There are lots of issues beyond the election, but this is giving us a clue that there are quite issues for us to discuss and to handle.
And Dr. Mumza, before I get to Moses, you mentioned something that really, the enablers.
Enablers.
The drivers of these ATMs, the drivers to get the tenfold to $500 billion, that whoever gets the social contract, things like power.
Yes.
There was a contestation between the Mother Ministry era and UEDCL. Today, power is like a visitor, wherever you are. There is power. There is the SGR the president has been talking about. Money is being borrowed in that. But there's also the pipeline and claims of 50% of it being done. How are these going to be game changers, especially in spending and them getting ready? Because there's a conversation of the first drop coming around September of this year or even further. How do these change the trajectory of the economy if they happen in this election year, 2026?
Yeah, sure. This is, for me, the conversation that I would really want to have, as I said, on the policy issues. It is easy to have the money, but if you do not have the right policy and institutional framework, you get into a problem. And there are very many people who are literally just zooming in onto Uganda. And I like my colleague here, he knows his constituency very well, which he should, because everyone must begin there. Your area of responsibility, the other day the president said, I don't want to see the goalkeeper at the center of the pitch. Be in your area of responsibility. But should there be need, please understand what is happening in the game. Sometimes the goalkeeper is the captain of the team. So he's looking at everywhere. Now, many Ugandans are not appreciating the bigger picture that is going to affect the economy beyond the election. The other day, the president talked about the Indian Ocean, and people thought it was a joke. I said, no, this is a military strategist. Now, look at what has happened to Venezuela. We have just here said America has grabbed a Russian oil tanker in the Atlantic Ocean. You're talking about oil. What is going to happen to Uganda's oil when it leaves Tanga? You have to pick interest in the Indian Ocean as a person who sells oil. Now, how much of this conversation is in the politics is my bigger concern. That while we are discussing the issues around our feet, we also need to be looking beyond our feet what is happening there. What is the, and Honorable Mukura has laid a very fundamental things. What is the security situation? This is a very volatile region. South Sudan, Sudan, Darfur, Israel has just recognized Somaliland. Uganda is in Somalia. So what becomes of Israel's interest in Somaliland and Uganda's interest and the regional interest in Somalia? These issues feed into the budget. A big portion of our budget is a security budget. Everybody should recognize the security situation in Uganda, but it's not coming on a silver platter. It is costing us something. And it's possibly the reason, the garbage, because where security matters come in,
the others become periphery.
But garbage is also another security threat because diseases can emerge from there. And before you know it, the military hospital is no longer a military hospital. It's a community hospital.
Garbage killed over 30
people there.
in
But even when I go into the discussion I talked earlier of what the Chancellor has committed us to do, and we're making progress, you're looking at the whole 360-degree issues. And this is the discussion really we must be having, that beyond 15th of January, what should Uganda be looking like?
Elections end on 27th.
15th is the major one that everybody is looking at. Sometimes I don't even know who is my LOC. And sometimes I say, for financial reasons and for economic reasons, can we postpone some things? It's a weird idea, but as he said, some things come out of Ruzi's kind of conversations. We have held no elections for LOC1s. But they are there doing their work.
And Uganda is moving on.
Uganda is moving on. So there are some of these things where we really need to face the realities. So this is a budget constraint. We have garbage, we have security, we have this. What do we do with the little money we have? Do we need a vote on this? I wish we did, and we voted the way Ugandans would want problems solved, and they prioritize for us.
Moses, let me come to you. 2016, 5 million people did not show up to vote. 2021, 8 million people did not show up to vote. This voter apathy, is it a concern, and what is it saying to us? And if it, what is your projection for 2026?
All right, thank you, Timothy. If you may allow me, with your indulgence, just make a comment about the biometric system. Where we find ourselves today is as a result of a Supreme Court jurisprudence. 2016, the Supreme Court in the case of John Patrick Amama Mbabazi versus YK Museveni, where Professor Oloko Onyango was amicus curiae, the Supreme Court, in determining one of the issues as to whether the participation of the officials of the Commission affected the outcome of the process substantively, made recommendations that the Commission should adopt the use of technology. This was 10 years ago. So I think that government has had enough time to implement that decision, the same way government took it upon itself to appoint a judge or the chair of the Commission at the level of a High Court judge, is the same way they should have taken part of the 2016 recommendations with regards to technology. So to find government lagging in the 11th hour is unfortunate because the credibility of an electoral process goes down to the outcome of an electoral process goes back to the credibility of the voter register and the transparency of the process, right? So I think that the issue of the voter apathy is informed by multiple things, right?
Just to stick to something you've said, you mentioned the recommendations of 2016.
Yeah, please.
Why are you cherry picking and also not mentioning the army not being part of the electoral process?
We are discussing technology.
No, but still, because you mentioned the recommendations. So if you've mentioned them, you have opened the window. So let's go there. Why choose one and leave the rest?
Well, I cherry picked because that is what is relevant to this discussion right now. So, but just before I lose my train of thought, is on the issue of the voter apathy. There are multiple layers that lead us to that particular situation. One of which is the messaging from the campaign agents or the candidates themselves. What message are they putting out there? Do they encourage people to come out and vote, or do they create a situation of fear-mongering, all right? That if you have a candidate saying that, you know what, go and vote, and then after go to the streets, the peaceful Ugandan who doesn't want to be involved in that case will say, wait, I think I would rather stay home and not go and vote. So I think there are multiple layers that lead towards that voter apathy, one of which is the process that leads towards the voting itself. Has it been marred by electoral violence? Has it been marred by issues such as voter intimidation, all right? So if the voter has had a fair share to appreciate the message of their candidates, but also has not been exposed to multiple layers of electoral violence, both from within themselves and as well as from the security organs, then I think that creates for us a better situation. But ultimately, to respond to your question, is that we don't need security in the electoral process, all right? The laws that govern our elections are very clear. We have the Parliamentary Elections Act, we have the Presidential Elections Act, and all these other laws that are sufficient. In fact, Uganda is over-legislated. So the laws are sufficient. The laws do not at any one point invite the military into our electoral processes. But as to whether the police will deem it fit, according to the situations as they may arise, as to whether they will deem it fit in their analysis to require support or additional backup from the military, I think that will leave it for those who have the requisite skill to process. But I think that but really, by and large, elections should be a civilian-driven, civilian-led process, and that should just be it.
Would I give you some just information?
Yes.
You know, sometime back, the young people of Buganda were asking the Katikkiro of Buganda why the people guarding the Kabaka were not the Bamboa. Because traditionally, it is the Bamboa who are supposed to guard the Kabaka. And the Katikkiro told them that the level of threat determines the nature of deployment. So even when ordinary police or police constables must guard the elections, it also depends on the environment and other factors that come in, which will reinforce on whether there is need to escalate on who guards or plays a role or not. It's an environment. The law may be there, but what exactly is subsisting on the ground, and what will it take it to do the right thing?
Yes.
I think they are discussing the aspect of deployment, but there is the aspect of participation. I'll tell you, in my constituency, I have a whole PC serving major. I would mention his name here, but for courtesy, I'll leave it. He's a serving major in the army. He's a PC. He's a political commissar. He's calling meetings to campaign for a candidate. A serving soldier.
What does PC mean?
Political commissar.
Isn't that part of the politics?
Political commissar, you're not supposed to campaign for candidates because your job is to... You get, but when you say that a PC is free to come and sit in a rally with a candidate, and that PC is supposed to be apolitical, that is one of the things which the judiciary was talking about. It is dangerous, you also know it. The moment army gets involved in partisan politics, then that means it is a gun against a civilian.
It's a pen against the bullet.
Yes, so
and it also creates an environment of intimidation.
Okay. It is happening in our constituency.
Let me finish with Moses here. Moses, I had an opportunity to visit a retired soldier on the 1st of this year, and she played an audio, but also she told me her issue. The question is about languaging, especially for the players that are in the field. When she was moving, she was in a yellow T-shirt. And the young people who were there next to her told her, hey, you're putting on Museveni's T-shirt. We're coming for the keys of your house after the 15th. That was the first one. The second one was the audio she played, which audio was that if we're me and Yvonne here, I should carry 1 liter of fuel and Yvonne should carry a match. That whoever we find a soldier, I pour the petrol and Yvonne lights the person up. When you listen to the language that has been going around, both from the opposition and the ruling party, all players, where is it taking us?
It takes two to tango. Really, for us to get to a point where there is violence, I think two people must have premeditated it and gone ahead to act upon it. There should be what in the law we call the mens rea, that you had a guilty mind to perform that action. So it all goes back to what are the minds of Ugandans premeditating as we move towards the election. And that premeditation is informed by circumstances. And that is where we encourage government or security apparatus to exercise restraint. Because it is also rather unrealistic to imagine that because we are a government, we have monopoly over violence. Once you open the floodgates for violence, even at times, you as security might lose control over it. So it is from a point of encouragement and restraint that some of us young Ugandans in the NRM say that security apparatus must be vigilant and must exercise restraint. If now, for example, those individuals that are making such comments and having such conversations, we should have an intelligence system that is sufficient and robust enough to identify such hotspots and pick out these individuals and interrogate them and process them through the legal channels and bring them to justice. Because I'm also not certain that that is the thinking of the vast majority of Ugandans. I have the confidence and belief that those are pocket cases, that not everyone is premeditating violence and is premeditating all these other things. But again, this goes back to what I would call the deep pocket theory, that as government, you must be magnanimous. The duty is upon you to ensure that there is peace and stability. So you cannot have security apparatus being overzealous and then you expect the population upon which the violence is being meted to act with restraint. Like I said, it takes two to tango. So what is good for the goose is good for the gander. So the principle is very clear. If there's an individual, a young Ugandan out there who is premeditating violence, let's have proper intelligence systems to identify them and bring them to book justly, all right? But also in that process, provoking security operatives, because we also don't expect you a Ugandan to go ahead and attack a security operative and expect them to, massage you or something like that. Because your attack on a security organ, say a military officer, looking at it from a geopolitical perspective, it has everything to do with our sovereignty. So we cannot also have people undermining the security of the country, because if security of a country can be undermined by its armless civilians in the country, then what will the selfish international players then imagine of what has become of our security system? So I think, really, in conclusion, it is a two-way street. Both parties have to play their role, but with restraints and with consciousness, having in mind that this country will be here post 15th, and we all have a duty to ensure that it exists peacefully.
I like the last point there where you say the country will be here past the 15th. Yvonne, I know you want to comment about some of the things they've mentioned, but particularly I want us to have a conversation with you on the internet. I know a few months back, and I can categorically say it because he said it in the news, State Minister for ICT and National Guidance, the Honorable Godfrey Kabyanga, said if the internet becomes a security threat, it will be switched off. But there's been a ping pong. The PS, a few days ago, did not categorically say we're not going to switch off the internet. The ED of UCC comes out and says, we know about BitChat, we know about other logarithms that you want to use, but the last election, it was switched off for 4 days. What is the implication to that? What is also the implication to the economy with that?
Allow me first respond to a couple of things that my fellow guests have actually talked about. I'll begin with the National Voters Registry. The Electoral Commission is mandated under the law to actually provide an updated National Voters Registry 14 days prior to an election. So the fact that I think we have about, 6 days to go, or 9 or 6 days to go, and they've not yet provided one for majority of the leaders that are trying to run for some of these positions, shows that one, there's no respect for the law anymore. There's no respect for the law anymore. The Electoral Commission has had 5 years to prepare for this election. And of each of those years, they've been given a budget to prepare. So I've had someone saying that they did not have money to prepare for the elections, or that part of what some of these systems that are coming up to have not been properly planned for. Then now we wonder, as citizens, we've been paying taxes every single year. You've produced a budget every single year, and we've seen the Electoral Commission receiving certain amounts of money to prepare for this election. But now 6 days, and this is not the first time they're saying they don't have money. I think recently, a few weeks back, they asked for an additional budget of about 400 and something billion. It's very devastating to us citizens who are putting in so much effort to work, to pay taxes that are going towards this service delivery that is not actually being delivered. It's devastating. We are flabbergasted, and I can't believe that 6 days to an election, the Electoral Commission is saying it doesn't have a ready, updated voters registry. They don't respect the law. They are not respecting our citizens, and they're not respecting what their delivery KPIs are supposed to be. Someone always says that dysfunction definitely serves a side. And I think we need to be honest about what the Electoral Commission is doing. They are not transparent, and I think the outcomes of what this dysfunction is going to be are clearly obvious. We know what is going to be the outcome of this election before it even happens. There's only one person this dysfunction is going to serve, and we know them. Secondly, the biometric voting system. Sorry? Why are you asking those questions here?
He's not the moderator. Please go on.
The biometric voting system has become a compulsory system. I just wanted to remind the Honorable Ronald that it's now compulsory. Back to 2016, I think, and 2021, it was a complementary to the traditional voting system or mechanism. But this time, the president himself said it's compulsory. It is the only system that is supposed to run this election. Secondly, there are regulations they've passed. I think they passed them some days back. The Minister for Constitutional Affairs and Justice, Norbert Mao, passed regulations that make it a compulsory system for this particular election. So it mandates the EC to actually use it. I need us to be honest about Uganda's technology space and infrastructure. If we want this, what this system is supposed to do, if it's supposed to do what it's supposed to do, is it realistic? If we go back to what the national census was, I think this was what year?
2024.
2024. What happened with those small machines they had? It wasn't even 2-3 weeks when they had just started the process. Those machines had died. So I want us to be honest about Uganda fronting a biometric system that they've made compulsory to use. Let me tell you, the regulations have not said that there's any other system that is going to be used complementary to the biometric system. So I want Ugandans to know that there's nothing else you're going to do apart from that system and use it. So when that technology fails, when there's no power or electricity, what we call electricity here, which is half the time it's not there, and when there's no internet, how are we going to use this system? Tell me how that dysfunction is not going to serve someone who is trying to entrench themselves into power, to use it. How? How are they not going to use it? We need to be honest about the transparency of what these elections are. My Honorable Dombo talked about, you posed a question to him about a journalist who was rammed the other day into a vehicle by security agents. It's a narrative they've created. They don't want to own it. I don't know what the intention is, to show the citizens that this is a narrative they're intentionally trying to create, but that's not the only thing. The violence has been going on since the beginning of the elections. I think we had only peace for about 1 or 2 weeks. And then after that, they meted it out to opposition, they're arresting activists, they're beating journalists. It is a narrative they've created. They're using security agents to intimidate anything that is dissenting, anyone that is trying to record opposition activities. So this intentional narrative is something they've created. I don't know what excuses now they are using for the army that it's not supposed to be doing. This is your role. If it comes to the worst, we should be holding majority of these people accountable on individual level. Like we've talked about, we cannot afford to carry any of this anymore. We blame only systems, and yet individuals are the ones doing what is not supposed to be done. So anyway, it's okay. Let me go to the internet and the implications. I think from 2021, this is when we first got the real feel of what an internet shutdown is. I think for 4 days, Uganda was in a blackout of the internet. The implications, honestly speaking, we use the internet for almost everything right now. For almost everything. We use it to, majority of us use it for businesses. As you know, a lot of young people especially are gig economists. They use the internet to do their businesses, to conduct their businesses online, to talk to customers, to trade with different people. The internet does a lot. We use the internet for news. We use the internet to stay connected to people, to stay in communication with different people. We use the internet to know what's happening around us in general. Economically, definitely I've talked about the functions of business and etc., and especially to populations and demographics that are largely affected because that's where they do majority of their livelihood. It's an intentional way to also still stifle a demographic that largely depends on the internet to function every day. It's intentional. So shutting it down, I don't think it's only largely meant to create that environment for people, one, not to go to vote. I genuinely think voter apathy is being intentional, is being intentionally pushed by this government so that people don't go to vote. And whatever system they are trying to bring with these biometric things and these papers, we are seeing the ballot papers they are now importing from South Africa, Saudi Arabia, or wherever. We don't know if they already pre-ticked. I mean, we can already guess a narrative has been created before. We don't know if this is what they want to use it for. We do not know. But we have reached that level of dysfunction where Ugandans don't trust any form of system now to function the way it's supposed to function. So we need to be honest. The internet is going to be cut off. I know that statements are going on and off and where and etc. We've tried to create alternatives. People are talking about using BitChat. Government has come and fallen into those plans and said, oh, we know how to shut it down. Starlink tried to come and get regulation, compliance regulation, and they've still refused. And they said, listen, maybe after elections you will come and be able to be regulated to work here in Uganda, but for now, no. And Starlink put out a statement and said, for now we are complying with the government, we do not work in Uganda. So what happens to Ugandans who are impacted by the internet shutdown? What happens to the biometric system that is meant to use this digital era to be able to perform? And yet, it definitely uses the internet. It uses electricity, and it's not going to be on. What's going to happen to this election of 2026? Are we being honest?
Thank you, Yvonne. Let me bring in Dr. Mukula to give his last remark here. Dr. Honorable Mukula, I know you have been part of the elections both in Soroti, and now you were there with your son as the elections happen. But the question is around the biometric and technology as Uganda prepares for this election. How confident are you about this biometric machine, but also how confident about the ground being even and fair and credible?
Let me, first of all, allay the fears of most of the contributors and the panelists, and also those who are listening. Uganda has held free and fair elections. And I want to really hasten to add that the 2026 elections on 15th and post-election period will be stable, security will be guaranteed, and there is no need or there will be no reason for anybody to panic or to raise any iota of doubt about the post-election violence. I want to assure the people of Uganda that under General Yoweri Kaguta Museveni, who is still the president, even if he's an aspiring candidate, there will be peace and stability, and our security forces, the Uganda police, and it will guarantee that peace. That's number one. Number two, the question you raised about the biometric electoral system, which has been used since 2011 and are now part of the core election management of the Electoral Commission. Their reliability and safeguards must be understood in every local, operational, and legal infrastructural context. And I want to assure you that the BVR, or the biometric voter registration, and the biometric verification, all these integrated systems work in such a way that they are globally acceptable. And in many parts of the world, it doesn't matter whether it's United States, whether you talk about Russia, whether you talk about Kenya, whether you talk about Ghana, all this biometric voter verification and voter infrastructure is something which has been tested, and we have worked on it, and it has worked end to end. And in terms of the network, internet, Wi-Fi, most biometric have a line which work even offline, so that even on the polling day, the lifespan of the battery, for example, has now been extended in the new equipment that the Electoral Commission has procured, which is over 8 hours. Some go even to 14. I think the new one which has been procured is over 12 hours. And what I would like to make absolutely clear, because I know for a fact that this equipment that we've had has now got what you call a much longer battery life. It will also safeguard the whole process from what you call network failures which would, for example, cause a disruption in the voting, external interference or hacking, data manipulation in terms of real time. All these are factors which are all embedded. So I want to say end-to-end inscription of this biometrics data, which is very critical for people to understand in terms of audit loads, role-based access controls. And it is important for you to get to know that these are all part of ways and means of avoiding what you call rigging, manipulation of the electoral process, vote stuffing, and so on and so forth. And I want to say that really when you underscore the whole entire electoral process, many of the candidates across the country are going to have what you call polling agents. And the law has provided for it. All, whether presidential, parliamentary, and so on, will
okay. Honorable Mukula, let me come back to you because we're beginning to lose you there.
I think that we're good.
Let me come back to you there. Let me read some feedback that has come through. Good evening, Timothy. This is Richard from Abim district. We, the young people, are not happy with the current regime. We need a change so that we can solve the unemployment problem. Okay, interesting. From JB, good evening, Timothy. My concern is the Electoral Commission. It's conducting trainings for polling assistants, presiding officers, but to my surprise, there's not even a drop of water or lunch. Is this normal to treat Ugandans like government, like by this government? Look at the pay. The allowance is only 40,000 shillings. So this country. Okay, thank you for your comment. One more comes in and says, the voter slips are with the parish supervisors, who are supposed to go around the villages, but not to remain in one place. This is Kajina Julius in Mitoma. Thank you. Just two more and we call it an evening. Uganda yafuka ya kujiriba. No time to discuss issues with family. Good evening, thank you for the show. This is Tobias from Mitiana. Ugandan politics is dirty, just wasting time and trying to prove we are practicing democracy. Such a joke. Biometric machines won't work, majorly in the villages where people use their hands to do tough work, and the thumbs could have difficulty in being read. Quite interesting there. Lastly, good evening, Timothy. Thank you for the program. I'm in Nigeria and I have gone to pick my voter's slip 4 times on 4 different days, and I have been told that the list that bears my name has not yet been printed. Where is the problem? EC. I tend to think that there is probably the EC does not value the voter slip. This is Stephen from Nigeria. Very interesting comments there. We're going to have parting shots, and I will start with Yvonne, who is my immediate neighbor, Moses, Dr. Mhumza, Ronald, and lastly, Honorable Dombo. The 2 minutes start with you, Yvonne.
Very interesting comments you've read there.
Very interesting indeed.
I think Ugandans have valid concerns regarding this election because we feel there's a lot that is not going according to plan. It also feels like we've not prepared well for these elections. And for that, I think majority of Ugandans are going to be on tentercourse to stay vigilant because, I mean, majority of them want to protect what their vote is, and if they're not protecting it, they're not going to turn up to vote. And I think at the end of the day, as a nation, if we start losing ourselves to voter apathy, I think we become desensitized to a reason why we're trying to push for proper governance. And I feel that Ugandans should be able to, go and vote at least to be sure that they know the kind of leaders they are pushing in. If maybe one might try and play some games and still entrench himself into power, there are still other levels of governance where the voices of Ugandans are very key. At parliamentary level, at local council level, so they need to vote. They need to make sure that they're putting the leaders they want into these seats, so that because by the end of the day, if most of these services are not reaching them, it's based off what the kind of leaders they've put into these positions to play. So they need to really push and make sure that the leaders they want are voted for, and
thank you.
I guess they're vigilant at the end of the day.
Moses, over to you.
Thank you. My parting shots, I want to thank you, Timothy, for having us today on the show. And secondly is to state that the outcome of 15th January, a win for the NRM will not be by surprise because of the structural strength of the NRM. The party has been able to field candidates in all constituents, in over the 530 constituents. We have members of parliament. These are the active these are active campaign agents for both themselves and for the president. So these are structural strengths. Now that coupled with our robust party structures where you have a nine-member council per village for the youth, women, disability, and the rest. All these are individuals who are voters, but also they are campaign agents for our presidential candidate and also the flag bearers. But also at local council level, we have the party has filled to a great extent candidates in all these local council positions. So I think all these put together makes the win for the NRM inevitable. But also in conclusion is that the 15th of March and beyond, we should remember that our allegiance is to black, yellow, and red, and not to yellow, not to red, not to purple, or any other color that our political parties represent. So I think as we go out to vote, I encourage young people to go out and vote, but also remember that our allegiance is to black, yellow, and red. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Dr. Muhumuza.
As you read earlier, even those who will not vote, the commitment to the country should remain intact. Uganda should continue and will continue. How it continues should not be disrupted by the spike of the election, because there are many those who don't vote. And they have their own reasons why they do have that, but they are Ugandans and they have not run out from Uganda. So let's be mindful of everybody and the Uganda after the elections. That will still have the usual challenges to face. You talked about the electricity. We still have the roads. We still have the health centers. And these children who are in the train. Now others don't even have the train, so we don't know which standard gauge or which train are they. We still have our issues to fix. So let's not forget that beyond 15th and beyond the 27th, and when we are all done, there is work to do to build this country to levels that will make us be happy to stay here as Ugandans. Thank you very much. Ronald, over to you.
Thank you so much, Timothy, and my distinguished panelists. I have had the privilege to share this platform with you. I'd like to end with inviting Ugandans to come out and vote. Let nobody disenfranchise you. It is your right to vote. But also, vote responsibly. I want you to know that in NRM, there are good leaders, but there are also bad leaders. Choose. In NUP, there are good leaders, but there are also bad leaders. Whichever party. So I'm inviting Ugandans. Even in independence, there are good leaders, there are bad leaders. For the vote, vis-a-vis the position they want, and how do they measure. Don't just come, fetutegera manvuli, you are going to end up with jerry cans. Fetutegera bus, you are going to end up with useless people, I can assure you, and then you will be the ones crying again. We are now here, this problem, we don't see you, we vote you. Please, Ugandans, take your vote very seriously. Ignore the parties today for this election. My call to every Ugandan, ignore the parties. Take those colors away when you're casting your vote. Give your vote to somebody who's knowledgeable, like he said, who has the capacity to do. And it is surprising, Timothy, let me end with this. 2,000 plus MPs contesting. No one has a manifesto except Tugume Ronald Apuri. It is amazing.
Their parties have manifestos.
No, forget the party. You see, you represent your constituency that does not sit in the party manifesto. There are things that you must come for your constituency tapping. No, anyway, I just thought I should throw it there. You think about it really. When did we get off the issue of presenting ideas and solutions? Thank you so much. I pray that God keeps you safe till the 15th, the 14th, the 27th. Go out and vote. I conclude with this. The people who didn't vote last time could have chosen a president.
By not voting?
There were more than the people who voted the current president.
Okay, thank you. Honorable Dombo.
Timothy, I am a Christian. And the Christians who are older than 40 years know what Holy Communion meant 40 years ago. Holy Communion meant one cup, same bread, being shared by the believers. And at the advent of HIV, it was a huge debate whether we should maintain Holy Communion using same cup, and whether if we change it using different cups, whether the Holy Communion will still be holy, reflecting what happened the time when Jesus was on the eve of when he was going to go. During the COVID pandemic, some people who are Muslims didn't know that time can come when people will not visit their mosques, or that we may pray for Christmas during Christmas and we pray it at home. There are modifications in life that become necessary if the situation dictates so. During the COVID, people stayed at home 2 years. The Muslims prayed 5 prayers a day in their homes. Christians didn't go to church. Holy Communion, Christianity has remained. They have modified to bring more different cups. Others now do by dipping, but not sharing on the same mouth. Christianity has remained. When the warrant is that going forward, in order to protect human nature, certain things must be done, they are done by those in authority or those who have been given capacity to understand the implications what may be. Internet is good. Internet may become evil. Yesterday, they told us on the internet that the doctor had been killed in Bali, in the Budadiri. It was shared. The world could have gone into a spark and people killed one another because the doctor has been killed. The same internet is saying the doctor is alive and is normal. Let us use things in a responsible manner, because if we don't, the regulators may come in to do their work in the interest of public peace. We wish everybody good elections. One, thank my colleagues who have deliberated excellently well. And I wish you good elections. I know there may be another behind the headlines, but at that time everybody will be fortified because the following day we shall be going to the polls, and let's wish everybody good polls and re-echo the words of the Katikkiro of Buganda. He said, let us reflect on the words that we use when we are talking to one another and about one another. He used the Luganda word when he said, ememe etafumba bigambo, ekwogeza muno kyatali erabira.
Okay. I wish you a good night and good morning. Yes, to Lira and Cole. Gentlemen and lady, thank you very much for coming. I also appreciate the Honorable Dr. Mukula for coming online there. And we appreciate the technical team for making today possible, especially you who has been watching or sent us a message. We'll end with this quote. A nation's culture resides in the heart and the soul of its people. Good morning.
UBC Inspire. In a nation hungry for truth, a world where every story matters, there exists a beacon of trust and reliability. For decades, they've been our voice and our window to the world, holding the mirror of our history. With 4 TV stations and 11 radio channels spanning 27 languages, they stand as guardians of information, defenders of truth. With Mascari Heritage Advantage, they uphold every citizen's right to reliable and free information. Their archive stories shaped our past and illuminate our present. Yet now, as new challenges arise and the world evolves, their mission faces its greatest test yet. Be part of our journey and let's navigate the unknown, uncover the untold, and safeguard our future together. Tune into your public broadcaster, for it is the intersection of trust and truth. Because to UBC, your story, and every voice matters. UBC, inspiring Uganda.
UBC, inspiring Uganda. UBC, inspiring Uganda.